Hello? Everybody hear me? Okay, my name is John Ason. I am an angel investor, and I'm happy to be here in this. Oops. Hang on. Oops. That way. Okay. Let me give you a little background on me. I spent 25 years at AT&T Bell Laboratories. Can you hear me? Okay, good. I spent 25 years at AT&T Bell Laboratories. The first 10 years I was doing bleeding edge technology work. I did their first workstation, their first digital voice response unit, their internet, the first digital trunk and so forth. Then I spent 15 years doing overseas work, primarily in the Far East, Japan, and Brazil. I was successful in the stock market, so I quit. And I've been an angel investor for the last 17 years. Okay, here are some of my companies. Because of my strong technical background and the fact that I work for Bell Laboratories, which produced quite a few Nobel Prize winners, the two companies I am most famous for funding are diapers.com and bikini.com. Okay. With diapers.com, people used to make fun of me because I sold diapers on the internet. We then sold the company for $545 million to Amazon. Okay, those people aren't laughing at me anymore. With bikini.com, this company does exactly what you think it does. I invested in this company when I was going through my midlife crisis. Okay, I've done about 40 companies, close to 50. And here are some of them. Ex Libris was an internet book publisher in 1996, one of the earliest applications on the internet. A company like Scoopal, we do automated news on the internet. We have technology from Columbia University. We scan the internet and produce news automatically. Doodle Deals was a flash site for mommies, like a Groupon for mommies. Coding is a company that does free development environment and free space. So if you want to do some free development, Coding is a company for it. Centric is a real-time location system for hospitals. We track doctors, nurses, patients, and high-valued items. Kaluna Vineyard, that is a vineyard or a winery in California. We make French-style Bordeaux. The company was founded in 2005, and now we have wine that's rated in the 92 and 93 range. Happy Couple is one of my recent investments. It's a wedding design and management company, and it's gone into hyper-growth. And Flatball is a company that's a toy company. We make a flat ball which compresses to a frisbee, you throw it, and it pops open. We've sold over 15 million of those. So these are some of my companies. Okay, what is angel investing? It is a source of funds for early stage companies. Typically, it is the first professional level. And by that I mean this is the first time you're looking for money and asking the perfect stranger for money. You exhausted your friends, families, so now you're dealing with a professional who's doing this for a living. I typically invest $100,000 per company, and over the life of the company, it can go up to $500,000. And you're going to get experience and assistance whether you want it or not. In a typical angel, they're usually private. There are no lists of angels that you can get like a Pratt's Guide to VCs. And one of the main characteristics of an angel that's valuable is they've been able to acquire and accumulate capital. And most angels are either retired professionals like I am, or they're entrepreneurs who've cashed out. And typically for angel investing, financial return is a secondary concern. It is not the prime reason we're doing angel investing. Okay. And what do angels want? We want a pleasant experience. We want the excitement of growing a company. One of my companies, Ex Libris, we were at 20 people in January, and by June we were at 160 people. And we grew revenues 30% month over month, and we opened up offices in London and Tokyo. And then we ran out of money, but that's a different story. Okay. We want an environment where we can contribute and participate. So we want to help the management do some oversight. And lastly, we have a large Rolodex. So getting contacts or getting introductions is one of our main contributions. And lastly, we want an exit strategy. Okay, what's an exit strategy? The most common exit strategy for a startup is Chapter 11 or disbanding the company. About 60% of all companies we invest in go under with zero return. Okay, another type of company can be a lifestyle company. This is a company that survives, makes enough money for the founders, is thriving, but there's no return for the investors. This is the worst type of company for an investor. You don't even get the tax loss. So to prevent that, in our typical agreement, we put in a put option, which allows us to sell back the company to the founders after a 3 to 5 year period. So we do not allow a lifestyle company to come as a result of our investment. The most common typical exit for a startup is a buyout or merger. Well over 95% of all successful exits are through buyouts or mergers. So that is a key objective of a startup. You could get a venture capital round, but it's unlikely. Simply from mathematics, there's over 100,000 companies, angel-funded companies in the US. At most, there's 2,000 to 3,000 VC-funded companies. So when you look at the great number of angel-funded companies versus the number of companies that are funded by VCs, the numbers don't work out. So it's unlikely that you'll get VC funding, although that's possible. And doing initial public offering is very difficult. I've only had one that was close to, and that was diapers.com, but we got sold before that to Amazon. You know, how do you find angels? Okay, well, this concludes the free portion of my presentation. Okay, basically, the only way you can find angels is through networking. Venture groups, venture fairs like this one, the internet, university lectures, and so forth. You can also find angels through your lawyers, accountants, or intermediaries. Now, what is it that we want to see? We want to see a short, focused business plan. And in my case, when I mean short, I mean a one-page executive level summary. I will not accept anything longer than a one-page executive level summary. Given that you've met that goal, we then want to see quality management and people. We invest in the people as opposed to the idea. So good people with a decent idea will get funded versus bad people with a great idea. They want to see a reasonable valuation, meaning how much do you think the company is worth? If you come in and say, I want the company to be worth $20 million, that's usually way too high and it's not reasonable. Typically, the way I do it is for the round that you raise, you give up 20 to 30% of the company. The more you raise, the higher valuation will give you because our risk is greatly reduced. So for example, if you raise $1 million, you're worth around $5 million. If you raise 100,000, you're worth basically 500, 600,000. So we value the company by how much you raise. So this is what we call backing into the valuation. We also want to see some market validation. Is there a market? Do you have customers? Do you have potential customers? So that's an example of market validation. You know, in terms of negotiating with angels, it has to be a win-win situation. The process is very asymmetrical. First of all, the valuation is fuzzy. Just pull a number out of the air or based on how much you raise. How much the angel contributes is also going to be very fuzzy. In case of diapers.com, I contributed essentially nothing. In other companies, I work really hard and I work very closely with management. Our time frame is very casual versus the entrepreneur that needs money to survive, pay his rent, college, and so forth. And now, the key when you're negotiating with angels is there's nothing that forces us to invest. We can walk away at any time. So it has to be a win-win for both parties for this to be successful. In terms of financial returns, what we're looking for is a 10 times return on our investment. We call that a 10-bagger. That roughly corresponds to about a 50% internal rate of return. So lifestyle companies don't qualify by these metrics. In terms of company culture, the thing we look mostly for companies is speed. And by speed, I mean how fast can you develop the product, how fast can you meet with customers, and more importantly, how fast is your decision-making process. We want you to make decisions within half hour or an hour, and we want that to be a good decision. We're not concerned with you making the perfect decision. It takes you 6 weeks or 5 months to arrive at the perfect decision. So we want you to make quick decisions that are good as opposed to taking a long time to make the perfect decision. We want our companies to outsource everything. Everything that's not part of your core competence, either outsource it to companies within your region, overseas, and so forth. So we're big believers on outsourcing. We like to see the company have leverage and margins. Margins means that the percentage of the money coming in, you get a large percentage, hopefully in the 70, 80, 90% range. And leverage means you can sell one of them, 10 of them, 100,000, million, and so forth, very easily. So that's leverage. So we like to see companies with leverage and margins. We also like to see companies compete and cooperate with everybody. So if you're a company and your biggest competitor is in your space, we want you to compete and cooperate with your main competitor. In most cases, I tell my companies to send their business plan to their biggest competitor. Okay, and that kind of freaks out some people, but we like to do that. In almost all cases, we've done that. The big competitor basically either exited or stopped developing in that area or formed a strategic relationship with the startup. The strategic competitor is good for you because that is the most likely company to buy you out. They know the market, they know the value of what you're doing, so they are the prime purchasers of your company. And of course, we want you to be open and non-secretive. Okay, let's talk about the differences between angels and VCs. That's a little bit confusing. First of all, the money an angel invests is his own money. The money a VC invests is other people's money. Okay, which means if they invest other people's money, they have a fiduciary responsibility. They have to do the appropriate due diligence. So typically with a VC, you'll be at least 6 to 9 months doing due diligence, and they have to really protect their investors. In terms of revenue, I deal with pre-revenue companies, so they don't usually have revenues. VCs like to see revenues in the 2 to 5 million range. The management team for startups is usually quite small, 2 or 3 people typically. It's by definition not complete. VCs like to see a complete or nearly complete management team. Our internal rate of return is around 50%. VCs are happy with about a 30% internal rate of return. We do very early stage. VCs like to do expansion. By that I mean it's a company that's functioning, selling products and so forth. You just need more money to grow the company. Our multiple, we want 10 baggers. VCs are happy with 2 to 4 baggers. We take about very high risk. VCs do everything possible to reduce their risk. Okay, so let me talk about the evaluation process. First of all, we want to see a clean, concise, compelling, coherent, one-page executive level summary. We want to see a very large potential return. If we don't see a potential return, we basically walk away from the opportunity. It has to be intellectually stimulating. If it's not stimulating to us, we generally will pass on it. We want to see some marketing and sales skills. So if you're strictly an engineering company with only engineers who don't know how to sell and market, probably you're not a good fit for an angel company. And in terms of patents, we generally only value patents that are very valuable, called keystone patents. Patents that will keep other competitors from entering your market. Business method patents and use field patents and those types of patents we don't generally view very highly. In fact, we use the Guy Kawasaki method for evaluating those patents. We subtract $50,000 from your valuation for every patent you have like that. And lastly, one, execution capabilities. Can you execute? Can you make decisions quickly? Okay, now let me talk about the exploding angel market. Prior to about 3 years ago, I would do 1.5, maybe 2 companies per year. Last year I did 3, the year before I did 9, and the year before I did 5, which is a dramatic increase in terms of the companies that I'm able to do. Because several things have happened to dramatically increase the number of angel companies. The first is, starting a company is close to zero. All you need is a terminal, a laptop, and you can start a company. Okay, so validating a company is also now close to zero. And by that I mean landing pages. People put up a landing page asking people to sign up for the newsletter, signing up for the beta, signing up for information, doing a survey, and so forth. That in itself is a good market validation of you being able to reach your customers, reach your people. Okay, we also have had the emergence of accelerators. Accelerators are entities that provide funding for small companies, typically 25 to 40,000, and it's typically a 3 to 4 month period. They typically interview well over 20 companies for every company accepted, and they normally run 10 to 15 companies through a class. And it culminates in a demo day where there's typically 300 to 400 VCs, angels, that come to these meetings. So the accelerators are pumping up a lot of fundable, high-quality companies. So finding companies to invest in is quite easy. We also have the emergence of what we call super angels or micro VCs. These are VC funds that have capital in the range of $20, $40, $60 million and invest in early seed stage companies. Okay, so they act just like angels. So there's a large amount of new capital that come into the market for angel companies. We have the emergence of angel lists. Angel list, it lists companies and also as entrepreneurs and VCs and angels on it. And it's a social mechanism for angels. When I did 9 companies 2 years ago, they were all listed on angel lists. 7 of them got funding, 2 of them really went through the numbers. So this eliminated the need for me to do syndication or bringing other angels into the fold. Another big thing that's happened is graphical investor decks. Okay, we tend to like pictures better than words. So the new style of presentations to angels is a graphical presentation as opposed to words. So when I see presentations with words, tend to want to eliminate as many words as possible. And we've also now had a resurgence of family offices. Family office is a VC fund that's funded by one family, the most famous of which are the Rockefellers and the Lobes. So we've had a dramatic increase in volume of angel investing in the United States. Okay, let me talk about international activity. One of the things that is just starting is we are now having startups without a development or engineering or a software programming capability. So in other words, we have companies coming to market that have just business and marketing skills and basically want to then hire a development group after they get funding. So this is a fairly new phenomenon that's starting to occur. We are seeing a dramatic flood of foreign companies coming to the United States looking for funding. Just about every week in New York, we have another delegation or a foreign group coming to the United States with companies looking for funding. Also, a number of foreign governments are quizzing us or asking help in setting up startup environments and angel ecosystems. And international accelerators. Many, like Techstars, which is the premier accelerator in the United States, has opened up quite a few foreign ones. We have Seedcamp in Europe, we have several in London, there's one in Denmark, Singapore, and so forth. So there's a large number of accelerators that are now starting to become in the international market. So if you have a startup or an idea, shoot me an email. I'm very accessible, so if you email me, I'll be happy to respond. Any questions? Thank you.
Belarusian companies?
Pardon me?
Is it possible that you will invest in Belarusian startups?
Yes, I would like to, yes. If I can find some good ones, yes.
What rules you personally use to determine companies that you will invest? Do you have any static rules, or you see a particular idea and make a decision after that?
Okay.
What requirements do you have?
Okay. Typically, I'm unusual in terms of angels and VCs because I typically invest in industries I know nothing about. Okay, so what I typically like is a decent idea with good management and a company that can really grow fast. So if you meet those types of criteria, I probably am interested. Yeah, good management meaning people that seem to know what they're doing and are able to execute and make quick decisions. So we basically, during the due diligence or the interview process, we are judging the people more than we are judging the idea. Okay, so basically, you need a good rapport with the people, somebody you want to work with, and somebody who's smarter than you are. So typically, I'm looking for people who know much more about the area that are involved and are very sharp, smarter than I am.
Thank you for the interesting speech. And what industries do you find most interesting to invest to?
Would you say this again?
Or what industries? What maybe? What sectors, industries?
Again, I do stuff I don't know anything about, so everything's interesting.
What is your favorite maybe from last year?
I've done some mobile. When Couple is a mobile application. So I like mobile right now. And if you come to me with with a product, I typically will ask you, why don't you develop the mobile application first and then move it to the internet versus the other way around. Mobile can give you international virality, whereas a home page cannot do that. So it's the virality portion that I like in the mobile application.
Thank you for Elon's interesting things. So I have a question. Have you ever invested in tiny companies with just fresh idea, marketing plan, and nothing else?
Have I invested in a company with just a fresh idea? Yes. In other words, level of a napkin, yes.
Thank you.
Just now you said that you invested just in fresh idea, yeah? So was it successful or not?
One with the toy company was just an idea. That was very successful. I've got several now that are just ideas that seem to be doing quite well. But again, there's a very large failure rate on everything, so it just comes out, you know. You can't predict what's going to be successful or not.
John, have you invested outside of United States lately?
The only investment I made overseas was an Argentinian company with a development group in Bogota, but they became headquartered in the U.S. for tax and reasons. So that's the only one. I've gone through 4 due diligence on 4 companies when I was not able to complete the due diligence. It was cultural issues and negotiating issues. It was not the people or the idea.
Hello. You mentioned Techstars as startup accelerators. Do you participate in that? I mean, as a mentor or as a co-founder, or probably as a teacher there?
Okay, I'm an investor in the Entrepreneur Roundtable Accelerator and a mentor there, and I'm also a mentor in the Dream It Accelerator.
Yes.
Yeah, so I mentor within those accelerators approximately 50 companies a year.
Having in mind that you are here in Belarus, so are you expecting to find any potentially successful startup companies in Belarus?
I'm expecting to find some in, let's say, Eastern Europe, yes.
Okay, thank you.
I'm looking, okay?
Thank you.
Я хочу задать вопрос на русском, переводчик.
John, what is your attitude to social projects?
Say this again.
What is your attitude to social projects?
What is non-social? She means social network. I'm confused.
John, what is your attitude to social projects?
Or socially oriented projects?
With no economic, not profit, without big profit, with social goals.
Philanthropic projects.
All my companies are non-profits, but not by design. Okay. Typical angel that is early stage companies does not do any social projects. We typically invest in social projects independently of angel investing. So if you come in and you do something that's a socially good or beneficial project, it probably conflicts with the money-making business proposition. So I'm not into any philanthropy through angel investing. So I don't do that.
Мой вопрос будет по-русски. Какие компании более интересны для инвестирования? Которые работают на рынке B2C или которые на рынке B2B работают?
I do both. I like B2B because it takes longer, but it's a much more sticky proposition once you are successful. B2C tends to be much more flaky. You could be successful and think and just go away without anything. So I prefer B2B. However, I do more B2C than actual B2B. And also, I'm one of the few investors that invest aggressively in women-founded companies. I've got 11 companies that were started by women, and 5 of them are foreign-born. So I have a good track record with women.
Hello, John. I'd like to know, do you have a dream? And if yes, could you share your dream with us? Probably it can be related to project companies you invest in, but maybe not.
I'm just having a lot of fun investing in companies and watching them grow. I just get too much pleasure out of that. So maybe that's my dream. It's much better than working for a corporation. And that I like a lot.
John, what kind of professional help is the most usually startups get from you?
I'm sorry.
What kind of help, professional help and experience besides financial help, are startups the most usually likely to get from you?
I'd like to think so, that I provide some assistance, but in some cases I really don't.
What is the help that you provide beyond financial? What type of mentoring do you do?
I mentor companies. What I found out early in my start here is I cannot make a bad person a good manager. Okay? At best I can do is I can redirect them 3, 4, or 5 degrees one way or the other. So I can only influence a little bit on the mentor, on the entrepreneur. Areas that people find very useful for me is I'm very good at organizations for growth. If you're going to go to a hyper-growth situation, I'm very good at organizing the company to allow for the growth. And then I also keep, I'll just say, a large strategic view of the company, and I know what else is happening in the marketplace. So that's usually a big help, plus the Rolodex, making contacts for people. So if you want to meet with the CEO of a big company, I can usually arrange that. So that's the type of help. I do nothing operationally. So I don't do any work within the company, as a general rule. I have 17 active companies right now, so I can't really do much with any one specific company. And the way I typically work is through email, and that seems to work out pretty nice. And I visit them periodically, first socially. So when I visit, it's not really to do business, it's just to socialize.
Hi, I've got a question. Could you please give an example of an American investing into Belarusian or East European company, probably from experience of your friends or your business contacts? Some specific example when a business angel invested into Belarusian startup or a company, probably what you heard about, what you've seen.
Okay, I know angels who have invested in Russian companies when it was the Soviet Union. Esther Dyson is a woman who's invested in a lot of companies. Then I know Kirill Shenkin, who's actually a Russian, was in the U.S., who has come back and is doing a lot of investing in Eastern European companies. And typically it's very difficult for an angel to invest in foreign companies because of the culture differences, the time differences, the legal issues. So there's a lot of problems in those areas, and I think the accelerators are going to help standardize the relationship so that more U.S. angels like me can invest in foreign countries.
Sir, the legal issues and all these cultural differences you mentioned, do they leave any chance for Belarusian startups for, say, European or Russian market to get funded? Do you stand any chance?
I think so. My current experience with the outsourcing we did with Belarus has been very positive, more so than with India or China or the Philippines. We have found that the Belarusians tend to be a little bit more independent and also will take more project management responsibility than other countries. So from a cultural standpoint, I think Belarus is pretty good.
Hello, John. Thanks for your presentation. My friend is here. My friend is a little bit shy to ask you this question in person. That's why I'm kind of medium in this case. Do you have any examples of investment flops in your angel career? Can you name them? Investment flops, I mean, when you funded in some companies and after that you couldn't return your investment.
You mean my failures?
Yes.
Oh yeah, actually, I listed a lot of my failures. Okay, I'm actually proud of my failures. One was Make Us an Offer, which was a site where you negotiated with an avatar for the product, and if you made an agreement, you bought the product. And the company was doing exceptionally well, and it turns out we had a competitor funded by Ascendant, and they sued us when their patent was released, and we couldn't survive the patent. So the company went under, but was a very, very good company. Those people, the founders of the company, one of the women, I helped her get into Harvard Business School and helped the founder get a job at Aon, which is a big insurance company. Since then, that founder has set up 2 hedge funds, which I helped him set up, and I've been investing in his hedge funds, and he's doing fabulously well. So that's an example of a failure, but the actual people succeeded beyond their dreams after the company failed. One company I did my first telecommunications company, and the people just could not make a decision. They just could not sign a contract that was placed in front of them. So we had to just close that company. And then, so there's other type, but it's basically inability to execute, or the market just doesn't exist. So I have quite a few. It's not. One company was carbon nanoprobes. We did carbon nanotube probes for atomic force microscopes. And during the beta trial and so forth, we're selling quite a bit of these things for the atomic force microscopes. They got funded, we built a clean room, we put in quite a bit of money, and then we found out there were some quality issues we could not fix afterwards. So everything looked great, and then we couldn't prove in the quality, and we had to close the company down. So there's a lot of things like that.
So I get a question. Suppose there is a situation, you like my business plan and the startup very much, but I want to work in a Russian and Eastern European market, so some intermediaries are needed for that, like accelerators, right, as you mentioned during your presentation. So you like my proposal, then I go to the accelerators and work with legal and issues and stuff like that. Or you take the side. What happens?
What I would prefer is that you get into an accelerator and go through their program. And the valuable part for me is watching the progress you make in the accelerator. So that's a vision I don't normally see into a startup. And that qualifies your management skills and your abilities and so forth. And at the end of the process, your pitch deck and your presentation will be exceptional. So then you shouldn't have any trouble getting funding if you go through an accelerator. But over 90% of the companies that go into accelerators get funded.
Right. As I understand, like you like the idea, it's going to work, so I have to go to the accelerators and work the project through, right?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
That's a big help. And the other reason is this. The accelerators are producing so many fundable companies that investors like me are not spending as much time with companies that don't go through accelerators. So if you're not through an accelerator, the chance of people not looking at you is higher.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I have a question about challenges. So, what are
biggest challenges? I'm seeing so many great companies and meeting so many people. So there are times I would like to invest, but I just don't have the bandwidth or the capital to invest in all the great opportunities I see. So that's probably my biggest challenge. It's not finding companies, there's just proliferation of great companies. So to say no to a great company is painful for me because I can't invest for some reason or another.
Ну что, вопрос еще есть?
Do you believe in companies that work on national markets? For example, Belarusian company on Belarusian markets.
Do I believe in government companies?
No. Will you believe the company who try to penetrate the Belarusian market? Just for example, some food delivery in Minsk. Just local company, local startup.
Probably not. Local companies typically aren't big enough or become lifestyle companies. So we like to see more global.
For example, the whole Belarusian. Or should it penetrate the whole Eastern Europe or the whole Europe or the whole world?
I've talked to countries where they come in, they say we have 1.5 million, 2 million people in our country. And I tell them, look out the window here, I see 4 million people in New York City. It's just not big enough, at least for what I do.
For example, how much users do they have to please you? How much user base? How much clients or users should they have? Users.
What I want to see is something that's a global idea. Okay? For example,
like Facebook. Like Facebook or so.
But someone with decent traction or a great idea. For example, there's a Turkish company that did main memory utilization, allowed on the fly to get more main memory. And little person in a bag with someplace in Turkey and is now used by half the Fortune 500 companies. Okay, that's an example of a little person in a small country that went global. That I like.
Do you believe the copy-pastes, for example, a national company who takes the successful business model like Groupon or something and tries to develop it in their countries?
Yeah, we call that cloning, and those are interesting. You have proven business model that you take to a country. Yeah, that's, I've had a lot of people call me to want to replicate diapers.com overseas. And it turns out one country that's very suitable for it is Saudi Arabia. They have an exceptional transportation system because women can't drive there. So it's ideal for a diapers.com company in Saudi. Yeah, we also do the reverse. There's a Brazilian company that did exceptional email in Brazil. It had 6 million users. We brought it into the ER accelerator, and now they're selling very well. They're implementing their email features in all of the major email packages in the United States and globally. So it goes both ways.
Thank you.
One more question. What indicators you use to control the follow-up of the project you invest? I'm sorry.
The only indicator I really use is cash. How much cash do you have and how long can you survive? So the number I want to know is we can survive 6 months, 3 months, 2 years. That's the best indicator.
So you just wait for cash
Well,
and nothing else?
in most cases it's a wait, yes. Or we try to get either additional funding or we see if there needs to be a shift in the strategy. But basically everything is driven by cash.
And you talk with the people, try to ask them questions about the project. You talk with people and ask them questions about project, or you just sit and wait for cash.
We try to do things to increase their probability of success, yes. Yes. But in some cases you just can't. Or you just keep doing what you're doing and hope you get lucky. But yeah, so.
Okay. Yes, John, for this great presentation and sharing experience. Thank you very much.